show. But first, I want to tell you my Pinterest masterclass and visual marketing masterclass is getting ready to shut its doors. So if you're interested in that, make sure you go to manlypinteresttips.com/training. That's manlypinteresttips.com/training. Now, I'm really excited I've been on Post Planner a lot. I love to watch their blab, and I got to know Diana Adams from there, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today to introduce my audience to her. But she is a self-proclaimed Twitter addict.
Oh, and
she's been on Twitter almost every day since March of 2009, and she sent over 161,000 tweets. That is impressive. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And you're also the ambassador of happiness at Post Planner. And you do a lot of the community and blogging over there, which is very, very cool. And this blew me away that you wrote over 4,000 blog posts across the internet. That is a lot of content. So
I know it is, and a lot of it, probably half of it's on Star Wars. Just so you know.
Okay, that's all right. I will forgive you for that. That is really cool. And you're from Atlanta, and you're a big fan of Star Wars. Grande Java chips and nice people. So what are Grande Java chips?
This is a Grande Java chip.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
You gotta have one. And yeah, it's a drink. I'm trying to cut back, but since I had to come to Starbucks to do this blab for the internet, I always say that at Starbucks, the drinks are free. You're just paying for the internet.
That's good.
So good.
That is the way to rationalize it right there. Yeah. I put something the other day on Post Planner. I said, not Post Planner, on I used Post Planner to post it on Facebook, but I said the lady in front of me, it sounded like she was doing a spell more than she was ordering a drink, because it was like frappe. It was just crazy.
I know. People have those crazy drinks. And too, they have secret recipes, too, that you can look up online. Yeah.
Cool. That is very cool. So as I'm talking with Diana today, if you have any questions, make sure you ask the questions by typing /Q for those of you who are on Blab, and we will try to get to them today during the show. So Diana, tell me a little bit about your story and how you ended up at Post Planner.
Oh, Post Planner. I thought you were going to say ended up on Twitter.
Well, Twitter and then to Post Planner. So go to Twitter and then go on to Post Planner, because I think that would be interesting.
Well, people often ask me, the Twitter story, and I wish it was an exciting story, but the truth is I heard about it. I heard about Twitter. I heard people talking about it at the very beginning of 2009, and I thought, what is this thing? And I wasn't on any even on Facebook then. I wasn't on any social media site. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And so I signed up for a Twitter page, and yeah, I was fascinated with it from the very first day. So
and then
you just start meeting people, and you meet this person and that person. And back at the beginning of 2009, Rebecca and I joined Twitter in the same month.
Oh, really?
And back then, it was this really small community of like geeky people.
Right.
And everybody knew everybody. Everybody followed everybody. It was just this little community. So it was way different than it is now. I mean, we didn't share links back then. Back then, it was a big deal to share music. We'd share music, and everybody listened to songs, and it was very different. I mean, Twitter's still great, but it's just different than it was back then.
It sounds almost kind of like Google Plus. It was really geeky and small knit kind of community, and then it kind of went bye. But Shannon says, I remember how Twitter was. It was huge for Follow Friday.
I was back then. Okay, these days, Follow Friday is just all spammy, right? It's like, who does it? But back then, it was a really big deal. I would take the day off work on Fridays to sit home and tweet Follow Friday. Yeah, it was a big deal back then. Yeah, those were the good old days.
Oh, wow.
That was fun.
Oh, that's funny. So how did you end up? I mean, I know you have your own business, but how did you end up going over to Post Planner? I mean, what's the story kind of that way?
I have met so many people on Twitter, and so many places where I've worked, and clients and friends, close friends, I have met on Twitter, and I met Rebecca on Twitter, and so from Rebecca, it kind of weaved into Post Planner. So that's the thing about Twitter. When it comes to networking, and I don't even like to call it networking because that sounds so businessy. Really just more about meeting people and getting to know people and making connections. It's so wonderful for that.
Very good. Very cool. So, when you fell in love with Twitter, because it sounds like, I know you're still going crazy about it. I mean, I see you on it all the time. So what was the initial attraction? Was it this is a shiny new thing, or was it something you wanted to be first in on, or
No.
what was kind of your thoughts behind it?
I just thought it was neat that you could get on your computer and you could talk to people all over the world and get to meet them and find out about them and their lives and what's important to them. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And the Twitter stream, to watch it go so fast, I just thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, I was completely mesmerized. I remember the day I downloaded TweetDeck, and wow, blew my mind. So cool. So I just have always thought it was such a great idea from the first day.
Very cool. So there are a lot of new changes, like in this last week, that have been announced on Twitter. So can you kind of give us a rundown on some of these, the ones that you're excited about maybe, or what's changed, what is changing?
Okay. Well, first of all, your media is not going to have to count towards your character count. Now, that's a big deal because normally we have to save, 22, 23 characters for a photo or for a GIF. Those won't count anymore against character count. So that's a really big deal. That goes for pictures, video, GIFs. Now, your regular links, like a link over to your blog, for example, that will still count, right?
Oh,
so
it
I'm
will.
just talking.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just talking about I call it media. You know what I'm talking about, right? So that's a big deal. Another thing is, how we usually have to put that annoying period in front of a username.
Explain that a little bit to people who may not know what that is.
Okay, so if you start a tweet, well, I'll tell you the old way and then I'll tell you the new way, which is much better. The old way is if you started a tweet with the @ symbol and then the tweet, the only people who would see it are you, the person you sent it to, and anybody that is a mutual follower of you guys.
Of both of you. Yeah.
Of both of you. So if you wanted to start a tweet with an @ mention, because say you wanted to start a tweet but you want everybody to see it, you have to put a period in front of that, or any character would work. The kind of general thing became people would put a period there. Now you're not going to have to do that because basically everybody's going to see everybody's tweets. I can't figure out if that's a good change or not because it seems like that could get real spammy real quick. So we'll have to see how that one goes. But the point of these changes is that Twitter knows that we want to communicate with each other and we don't want to have to remember all kinds of ridiculous rules, right? There's always been like, oh, you can do this on Twitter. You can't do this. Or you have to format your tweet like that.
Right.
That stuff is going away, and it's really going to be more about the conversation instead of how you're formatting your tweet. Oh, another thing, too, this is cool. Well, cool if you like to promote yourself.
Right.
The retweet button currently on your own page is shaded out. You can't retweet yourself. That's going to change. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if you had sent out a tweet that you think is, a great tweet and you want to send it out again and you're sitting at your computer, you can just go down to that tweet and click the retweet button.
Very interesting. Yeah. That maybe get a little spammy as well, I think. If people do that a lot, I guess.
Well, I think Twitter knows that we like to talk about ourselves, right? So
right, exactly.
Making it easier to do that.
So on kind of like the company culture maybe of Twitter, I keep seeing the news like Twitter's dying, nobody uses it, their stock prices are falling. Are you still all in on Twitter? I mean, are you thinking that it's fine, they're just changing it for the end user, or are you thinking their rats are deserting the sinking ship? Or what are your kind of thoughts about Twitter as a company?
Well, I did an interview with NPR on this exact topic, and I'm not foolish enough to think that any social media site at all, other than Facebook, right? Because they've, they're different than everybody.
Right.
But aside from that, I mean, I think all social media sites take their course, right? They all run their course, and in 10 years from now, we're probably going to be mind controlling each other and ESPing.
Yeah,
and nobody's going to be typing a tweet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to last forever.
Gotcha.
But it's still fun. If you're asking me if I'm all in on Twitter, yes, it's still my favorite social media site.
I get a lot of questions from this for like potential clients, people who are coming in, and because Twitter is everywhere. Everybody talks about it. It's in the mainstream news. They'll see it on their shows. They'll have the tweet button, or the @ symbol and a hashtag even on certain shows. But small businesses, I still think, are confused on how Twitter can help them. So, how should a small business, let's say a local flower shop, for example, I love to use the local flower shop. How could they use Twitter for their small business?
I think the reason so many small businesses still have trouble with Twitter is because they try to use that traditional sales approach on Twitter, and it doesn't work, right? Sales in general have changed so much with social media. The consumer's in control now, right? And they have a voice, and they're forcing businesses and brands to step up their game. So I think that a lot of, businesses, they get on Twitter and they think, okay, here we go. Anybody who follows me is a potential customer. Well, that's probably a stretch, right? So you have to kind of have a different mentality when you're on Twitter. So small businesses, Twitter can certainly be a lead generating site. It can help drive conversions, but it's a longer cycle, right? There's some relationship building there. It's great for brand awareness. I mean, there's all kinds of, it's great for building relationships with customers or users. And, there's all kinds of benefits to a small business for being on Twitter, but you can't just go in and everybody who follows you, send them a direct message and say, pay $10 for this and download it, because nobody's going to do it. They're going to be like, well, what the heck is this? So you just have to understand how to use Twitter. But, and another thing it can be great for is driving traffic back to your site. I mean, Twitter is one of the biggest traffic drivers that we have at Post Planner. We have a lot of, that and Facebook. A lot of traffic goes back to our website and blog because of those sites. So that's another really good thing.
Very cool. So I know a lot of people use Twitter for customer service. And so maybe that would be a first step for like maybe a local company or something like that. I know that I usually take to Twitter when I have something to gripe about. I mean, I don't usually gripe about things unless they really hack me off. But like, when a pizza delivery messes up my order for like the 5th time in a row, I went to Twitter. And said, hey, what are you guys doing? And they answered. I mean, they were smart and they came back and they said, hey, we're so sorry. I've done that for another thing, and it was a bad experience because they said, well, go fill out this form, which is not what I want to do when you're mad. And so I think there's some best practices we should talk about for using Twitter. And let's start with like some general best practices, and then let's kind of narrow down a little bit into small businesses, how they can use some best practices. So let's start with what are some best practices just for the general Twitter user?
Okay, I want to back up and make a comment about something you said. You said that you think that Twitter would be a good place to start would be customer service.
Am I wrong?
I disagree with you on that. And the reason why is because so many people are angry, right? Customer service on Twitter is about managing those problems. And it's when you get a tweet from somebody that's like, you jerk, you blah, 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 you people, what's wrong with you? That's intimidating. You have to be a little bit of an experienced Twitter user to handle those kind of tweets, right?
Right. I guess you're right. Yeah.
So maybe you just start with having your social media presence there, right? You just start with, tweeting and engaging with people. And in my opinion, that would be an easier place to start. So some best practices. And this is a lot of Twitter best practices, I think, are subjective, right? Because there's no actual Twitter rules. So I'm going to say no automated direct message. Oh, and I'm saying that because I have over 100,000 followers, and I get so sick of those. I get like 100 of them, and I can't tell which ones are real and which ones aren't. And I miss important stuff. It's very annoying. So I would say do not auto direct message everybody who follows you. I think that's not such a good best practice. It is a best practice, though. It is nice when you reach out to people, and you do have to sometimes be first with that. You can't just wait for people to come to you. And I think it's a great idea to reach out to people and just start a conversation. It doesn't have to be difficult. As a matter of fact, on Madeline's Twitter Smarter chat that we just did, we were talking about, I was saying some people get stage fright when they get on Twitter. They're like, what do I say? What do I say?
Right.
But just pretend like you're, let's use your florist shop. Let's say, just pretend like you're at lunch with your colleague. What are you guys going to talk about? Well, there's your Twitter topics, just very simple. It doesn't have to be, every tweet doesn't have to be profound. Just very simple and engage. Right. You don't want your page, when somebody looks at your page, you don't want it to be all retweets, and you don't want it to be all links, no engagement. You want to have fun. So you want to show people that you're a real person. That's a big best practice for any business.
So what would you do for like this flower shop? So you kept talking about engagement, and we probably need to define that a little bit. What does engagement look like on Twitter? Because, when you first start out, you don't want to just start saying, hey, I have 20% off roses today. I have, we just got a new thing of daisies in, and just talk about yourself and keep blasting it out there. So what do you mean by engagement, and how can a small business like a flower shop do that?
Okay, so engagement, and by the way, I don't like that word, so I'm going to replace it with the word, it's like the dreaded word.
Right,
what should I do? What should I do on Twitter? You should engage. Ugh, I hate that word. So let's call it interaction,
okay,
right?
That sounds better.
Let's call it that. So in order to interact on Twitter, that means that it doesn't have to necessarily mean talking to one person, although it's nice to have that one-on-one conversation. But even just tweeting, a behind-the-scenes picture of your flower shop during the day and saying, hey, this is where we hang out, during our break time, and you show a room with flowers everywhere.
Right.
Or you tweet an article that says, do you know the history behind yellow roses? Did you know that yellow roses signify blah, blah, blah? And maybe link to your blog an article about it. Or, just find creative ways to get people to join the conversation and to tweet you back. Photos, well, and you know this from Pinterest, but photos are a great way to do that, right?
And it sounds like asking questions too. Like, what do you think? And it's because you're trying to draw them in, not to, what do you call it? Interact, not to interact with you.
Yeah.
And so questions are a great way to do that. You don't want to, but
questions are, and they don't have to be long. They can be really short too, because the shorter the tweet, the more engagement. That's the stat. So it can just be short, like Star Wars or Star Trek. Just type in Star Wars versus, which one, Star Wars or Star Trek, and just, if I did that, well, my whole community loves Star Wars, so they'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Right. Now, you could ask them, which one's the best movie, which, of course, would be Empire Strikes Back, but we won't get into that. So is there any – that's a great stat, that the shorter ones get the most engagement. So is there any secret sauce that you kind of use when you're trying to write engagement tweets? I'm sure you want to mix it up. You don't want – if questions are working, you don't want to always ask questions all the time. You want to mix it up with stuff. So what are some of your tips on writing tweet that not engage, what do we call it, that you can use to interact with people with?
Interact. You know what?
Right.
I'm going to tell you a story. This is a good story about Josh Parkinson, who is the founder, one of the two founders of Post Planner. And he was asking himself the same thing. What am I going to tweet about? What should I put on Twitter? So out of that birthed, whatever the word is, a whole feature inside the Post Planner app called Status Ideas. And there's over 15,000 things that you can send out to spark a conversation, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook. And we talk about this kind of stuff at Post Planner all the time. We even put together an infographic and if you had a box here, an extra box, I'd drop the link in, but with 42 tweet topics. So anyway, the point is that you just really have to open up your mind, be creative. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be creative. I mean, just be a person, be a real person. Don't just tweet links all the time. And you'll find that when your followers start interacting with you, there you go. You're on your way, right? Because you're replying, they're replying, somebody else is jumping in. It kind of takes on a life of its own.
Very cool. That's some great advice. So I get this question too from people when they first jump into Twitter. They go, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is a fire hose of information. It's out of control. How in the world am I even going to jump into the stream? So what do you tell people who are, when they, if you just look at it, it just seems overwhelming. You don't know who to follow, what to do, how to even get started. What are some of the first steps you ask people, you kind of coach people through?
Well, you want to be strategic about who you're following, first of all. That's a mistake I made when I first started, is I just followed everybody back. Mm-hmm. And then about 2 or 3 years into Twitter, my stream was just a bunch of junk, stuff I would never care about, right? Totally irrelevant to me. So then I started unfollowing people as I saw that content that wasn't relevant. And it probably took me a year. And I unfollowed probably 30 or 40,000 people. So now I follow a small amount compared to what I used to follow. And now when I look at my Twitter stream, it's like stuff I actually want to see, right? So
right.
you can mess up your Twitter experience by not being careful who you follow. So that's one thing that's really important. And then another thing too is taking advantage of Twitter lists, right? Twitter lists can be your savior. I have a list, a Rockstar list that has about, I don't know, maybe 500 people on it or so. And I've been adding to that list, over the years. And so I can just look at the tweets of the people on that list, and that stuff I know that I don't want to miss, right? I don't want to accidentally not see something that's from one of those people. And Twitter lists, you can segment them based on, maybe you want to have a group of wine lovers in a Twitter list, and then another Twitter list specifically to your industry, and another Twitter list for dog lovers, and another, and you can segment it out and follow those tweets, and then it's not so crazy.
Very cool. Now, on those lists, I know you can make them public or private, correct?
Yeah, you can.
What's the advantage between one or the other?
Well, a public list, anybody can follow those lists, right? With one click, they can follow everybody on that list. A private list would be something more that you would just want for yourself. You don't want other people accessing it. Like maybe you make a private list of your competitors and you're watching all your competitors' tweets and keeping up with what they're doing. You don't want somebody who's mad at you, right? Customer service person you're talking about going in there and being like, I'm going to contact all these competitors. You don't want to, so you just want to keep that private to yourself. So, there's all kinds of reasons to have a public or a private list. We have both at Post Planner. And my list, my main Rockstar list is public. But like I said, like at Post Planner, there's different reasons to have different types of lists. So we have both. Right.
And I use lists too. When I first started, I started influencers or people I did not want to miss. Like Rebecca was on there, Peg was on there, and people who I really wanted, who I knew put out good content, like you were saying, and I wanted to read it or share it, and I think that's one of the things that can really help people when they first get started. Another question, I know they jump into this too fast, but like small businesses when they first go on Twitter, they want to sell. I want to sell. Can you sell stuff through Twitter, or is it mostly? Would you recommend a relationship building kind of platform?
You can try to sell stuff on there when you first get on there, but you're going to find that it's more about the relationship building, right? So like at Post Planner, for example, we bring, this is a good idea. It's popped into my head. You could create your own Twitter landing page, right? Where people can connect with you off Twitter, because you were talking about Twitter not lasting forever. Think about it. You don't own your Twitter presence, right? Twitter owns your Twitter page. And someday when that goes away, you don't want to lose all of that. So what we do at Post Planner is we're constantly trying to move people off of there and over to our website, right? So if you're not a business, you can do this by just creating a Twitter landing page. There's all kinds of little templates that will help you do that. And you can get people on your email list. Now, that's something that you do own, right? Your email list or however you want to do that. So anyway, back to the small business. Selling directly on Twitter, not such a good idea. And you can try it, and then you'll see that it doesn't really work. But moving people over to your website, getting them in your funnel, your marketing funnel, right? And on your email list where you can start nurturing that relationship and building that relationship. Excellent for that, right? Excellent. And eventually when those people will convert, right? When they need that product, they're going to think of you. They're going to think of you on Twitter and all your tweets, and they will come to you and they will be ready to make a purchase. When they're ready.
So do you guys also, I know you can pin tweets to the top of your page. Do you guys rotate that stuff, or do you ever do that? I know I have one that I have pinned there forever, but it's actually a cool little video. It's kind of funny, but it drives people to go give my podcast a review, and it really has helped boost my podcast. And so, is there some tips that you use for how often you rotate that, or do you pin stuff to the top quite a bit for your clients and for Post Planner?
At Post Planner, we change out that pin tweet, or we try to every couple of days. Sometimes it's more like once a week, and we rotate it. Okay, so sometimes we may have something up there about Facebook. Well, Post Planner is a social media marketing app, so we'll put something up there about Twitter, about Facebook, and it's usually one of the infographics we've created or an ebook, so that when people come to our page right off the bat, we're offering them a piece of valuable content that will really help them with their marketing, right? So right off that, they're seeing that. And, or we might put, a pin tweet for our blab or for our viral chat. But for, you've said you've had one up there a long time. It must still be working for you, because sometimes people say, how long should I leave my pin tweet? And we say, well, as long as it's getting attention, if it's still getting clicks and people are, responding, interacting with it, like we said, then it's still doing its job. But then when that stops,
it's probably time to rotate mine. I mean, but the thing is, I still get comments about it because it says, go give a review because it might make your voice a little deeper. It's a whole little manly Pinterest kind of funny thing, and people will tweet me like, my voice isn't deeper, or I'm not scared, I'm going to do it, that kind of thing. So I think it still works for you. It's kind of fun, but it's very interesting. Oh, and David says has a good point. Says don't forget to add a UTM and encoding to the link. So you can see if it's driving traffic, which is a very, very good point. Yes.
Yes. That's very, very good point. We use HubSpot at Post Planner for that, and we track everything. And this, Jeff, because you've been on our blabs, but we are all about being data-driven for every single decision we make. And so we have tracking links on everything.
And that's the same thing that we do at Social Media Examiner, because even like on Instagram, we have you can't use, we don't use UTMs, but we use Bitly so we can track that. So yeah, very, very cool. Elisa says HubSpot is the best for tracking. I think she may like HubSpot a little bit. The other question I was going to ask, and I get this all the time, I'm sure, is like, how many tweets should I do a day? Guy Kawasaki says, do as many times that I get angry and then back it off. But the recommendations are all over the map. What do you recommend for how much tweeting you should do a day?
I think the recommendations for that are all over the map for the same reason the recommendations for the right times to tweet are all over the map, and it's because it's different for everybody. It's really hard to come up with a standard for everybody to follow on that. So for every person, it's different. And so we always say you should tweet as much as you can where you can still keep up with the interaction, right? You want to still be able to keep up with your replies and engage with people, which is the purpose of being on there in the first place. The purpose is not just to push out a bunch of content. It's to make those valuable connections. So remember why you're there in the first place, and you'll find that you kind of train your audience a little bit, which is bizarre because I tweet a lot, and when I don't tweet as much, people send me tweets and say, "What's going on? You're not tweeting as much," So it's like people get used to how much you tweet. So if you're only tweeting once a day, that's what people are going to expect. And if you tweet, 50 times a day, which I might do on a day when there's a Twitter chat, people love that. So don't be afraid that. Guy Kawasaki is saying, do it till you piss people off. Yeah, I guess you could reach that point, but don't be afraid of tweeting a lot.
Gotcha.
Just go
is there
for
anything I should not do that you say, don't ever do this on Twitter? I know direct message is one, but do you have anything else that you would just say, do not do on Twitter?
Don't send a tweet to your new follower that tries to get them to buy something. That is probably the fastest way. Somebody's not going to pay attention to you anymore, I would say don't do that. There's quite a few little Twitter faux pas. But for the most part, just be yourself. Be authentic. Don't try to be something you're not, because people can see through that in like 2 seconds. But yeah, understanding the sales process on social media is a big deal. And I think a lot of people don't quite still get that. And that's why they get on Twitter. They try to sell. It doesn't work. And then they get mad and they say, well, Twitter doesn't work. What's the big deal about Twitter? It's not working. And, but yeah, you got to flip-flop your thinking a little bit. It's the same, I think, on any social network. You can't just go and directly start sell. It's social for a reason. So should I include images? I know you can include images, and now we don't get, charged for our images. Should we, put images with every tweet, like for every blog post, should we have an image? Or if we should, with every tweet, we should have an image. Every single tweet. According to Simply Measured, 57% of all engagement on Twitter is associated with a tweet with a photo. And I read on the Twitter blog that tweets with photos get like 300 more engagement than tweets without photos. I mean, that's crazy stats. But this is the problem. There's a catch with this. And we were talking about this on Madeline's chat right before this. Some people, they are in such a hurry to put a photo on there that the photo isn't relevant to the link, or it's a poor quality photo, right? Something really grainy, or it's not the right size. It's this little bitty photo comes out, you know, on Twitter. And so, yes, put photos with tweets, but you have to put a little bit more thought into it than that. And when you start thinking about visual marketing as a whole, and of course, Rebecca is the master at this, and I've heard her talk about this so many times. You have such great opportunity with those images to brand your business, to get your messaging across, to really control how you're perceived with the images that you use. So it's a lot more than just grabbing an image and throwing it out there. You know, there's some thought to put into that. Which you know that. You're the master of that too. What am I saying?
And, you can make, you know, great images. It does stand out. And you know, we talked about how fast the fire hose of Twitter is. If you have a great image that is relevant to your blog post or whatever, I think it really does pop out, and people will stop and click on it and maybe go back to your website. So,
and when they're going through their Twitter feed, right, there's all these tweets, and then there's a cool photo. They're going to go, oh, wait a minute, what was that? And go back and look at it. You know, it's a really good way to stand out, because I'm surprised how many people.
Something that got me, and a couple of people have done it, and it really made a difference. It's like when I shared their post, or I was on their blog, their podcast, or whatever, they sent me a video tweet going, "Hey Jeff, thank you so much for being on my show." Or, "Hey Jeff, thanks so much for sharing that article. Really appreciate it. What can let me know if I can ever help you or whatever." And it was just a short little video, but holy cow, you're like, that is, I think, a little secret that a lot of people don't do. So, okay.
Yes, and you know, Gary Vee did a whole podcast on that. This is probably like 6 months ago. It was the coolest thing, because he was in the back of a taxi, and he's like, let me show you how fast you can do this. Grabs Twitter, opens it up, boom, video, leaves a little message for somebody, which takes you, 10 seconds? Send the tweet, you're done, and what a huge impression that makes, right? And I'm going to start doing that more, because I love that idea. And the ones that I've gotten from people, I always remember those. You know, I always remember, wow, that was so special.
I remember one time it was, she still sticks to my, Eileen Smith. She, I think that Eileen, and she sent me something. She goes, "Hey Jeff, you mentioned on your show this. Well, here's a quick little tool. Let me show you how to do it." And she did like a little walkthrough for me on how to set it up, and I'm like, that was just awesome. So, you know,
how cool is
I know,
that?
and so you're like I'm an Eileen fan forever, and so it's just amazing that just that little bit of how much that can make a difference. So, very good point.
Exactly, and she's our guest on Viral Chat next week.
Oh, very cool. She'll be awesome. So hashtags. How many should I use them? Because, you know, there's different rules for different networks. Should I use hashtags?
I pulled up stats.
Oh, cool. So how many hashtags should I use?
Stats. Okay, this is according to Simply Measured, which is the most respected social analytics site on the market, right? They say tweets that have 1 or 2 hashtags get 21% higher engagement than tweets with 3 or more. So in other words, don't put too many hashtags, 1 or 2, right? Because 1 or 2 get 21% higher engagement than tweets with 3 or more. And then they said just putting 2, that's twice as much engagement than if you wouldn't have put any. And then more than 2 hashtags, that's when your engagement starts dropping.
Gotcha.
So the key here is always include a hashtag, even if you are sending just a fun tweet. It's nothing for your industry. It's, you know, even then, put a hashtag. You know, you can put hashtag Monday Motivation, right? There's a hashtag. Get your hashtag in there. That particular hashtag might not be one of the ones that you're using for your business. It's just a fun one, but you're getting it in there in your tweet, because that's going to bump up your engagement right off the bat, you know? So hashtags are a big deal. You know, we always talk about doing your research, but
make sure they're relevant.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, make sure they're relevant. And and it's cool too, because then if your tweet gets engagement and then you pull up, you go to search.twitter.com and you pull out a hashtag, your tweet's going to be right there in the top, because because you're using a photo, right? We already talked about using a photo. and those photo tweets are right up there at the top.
Very, very good. That's really good data to use. So 2 at the most
Yes.
gets the best engagement.
Yes, and a lot of times I just use 1. It depends.
Right.
It depends on the.
Very cool. Now, should you make up your own hashtags, like hashtag post planner or hashtag manly Pinterest? Is that a good idea for companies to do?
It depends on what your goal with the hashtags is. There's 2 different ways to think about that. If you're having, say you're doing an event, or if we did use hashtag post planner, then you could easily tell people, join the conversation by going to such and such a hashtag, like the chats, right?
Right.
Twitter Smarter Chat, Viral Chat. Somebody can pull that up now. Go to search.twitter.com, put in that hashtag, and pull up that conversation. Now, if you're using just a funny hashtag or one that's for you, that is not one that, let me back up. So those are the hashtags that people can go to see the conversation. But then there's other hashtags, like those fun ones that make no sense, that we just use for fun. Those are nothing more than fun.
Gotcha.
Right? Like,
Yeah, I
know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then the third type of hashtag.
Just saying's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That's not going to get you any traffic, but it's just fun to put it in your tweet. And then the third kind of hashtag are the ones that you're actually doing your research for, right? They're the ones in your business. You want to show up in that stream because they're the hashtags that your potential clients and customers are using. They're searching those hashtags, looking for solutions to the problems that they have, and you want to show up there and with your valuable tweets.
Right.
So there's really like 3 categories, 3 buckets of hashtags.
Very cool. Very cool. Getting down towards the end of our questions, because I don't want to keep you too long, because I know you've been on so many shows today. So is it okay to automate tweets? To use some of these tools, and like Social Oomph is one I know people use. Hootsuite is another one. Is it okay to automate tweets? Are you a proponent? Yes or no? Maybe. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Because we can't, who wants to sit at their computer screen all day long on Twitter, right? Plus we've got Instagram and we've got Pinterest and we have Facebook. So yes, use those automation tools to your advantage. We have a webinar coming up all about social media automation. If anybody wants to check that out, you can go to the Post Planner Twitter page and look in the tweets there. It's right there. But social media automation, if used correctly, is your friend.
Right.
Yes, use that. But you want to use it correctly. And what I mean by that is you don't want to set up a bunch of tweets to go out. Say you're in Post Planner, you find your content, you schedule it, and then you don't want to just walk away and not check your Twitter page for a month. That's not a good idea. You still want to you want to automate your tweets, and then that's going to free up your time to pop in during the day, reply to people, interact, right? Instead of using your valuable time during the day to try to find something to tweet, you've got that all taken care of already. So yeah, social media automation is a wonderful thing when used correctly.
Very cool. Are there some certain apps or tools that you recommend that you like to use to kind of manage? I mean, a lot of them I know can help manage your Twitter and also help you schedule tweets. Are there certain ones that you really like to use?
Is this a trick question?
It is. It is.
Yeah,
I know Post Planner is one of them, but and I do use Post Planner a lot, especially for my Facebook stuff. I've really started using that, and I've seen a big difference. But is that what you like to use for Twitter too? Is that what you use for all your management?
I use that for just about everything. But the thing with those tools is you really have to try them out to find the ones that fit right for you. People like different tools, different, like them to work different ways. I think the main thing is not to be afraid of trying new tools, right? Because there's so many of them out there, and a lot of them are really, really good, and a lot of them aren't. But you got to kind of get in, play around with them. We have a blab next week all about our 5 favorite social media tools. CoSchedule. It's a great tool for analyzing your headlines. They have a free headline analyzer, fantastic tool. Of course, obviously, I love Post Planner, but there's Follower Wonk to help you with followers. There's just so many.
I just started using Agorapulse, and I have been kind of falling in love with it because I can get all my stuff at once with Instagram and stuff.
And Social Quant.
That's a great one too. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So you mentioned earlier Twitter chats. Now, for the people who don't know what those are, and I was in Twitter for a long time before I even knew what they were, and I was just out of it. I remember my first one, I sat down and I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. And I lurked on a lot of them, and then I finally started participating in some and made some great friends. There's one for Pinterest called Pin Chat that I'm in. That's every night. That's really, really great. Kelly Lieberman does that one. But can you explain what are tweet chats, and should a small company be in one or host one, or what are your thoughts on that? I mean, Post Planner has like 50 of them.
Absolutely.
They're all over.
No, come on.
Got,
not 50. We have 100. No,
but you guys you guys really do rock it, and you wouldn't be doing it if it, like you said, you track everything. You wouldn't be doing them if they weren't working. So.
Yeah, well, we do track the impressions and the reach and the tweets and the number of people that come to every single chat. Our Post Planner chat is called Viral Chat, #Viral Chat. And it's on Thursday night, so it just happens to be tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about, different social media topics for small business, usually something that focuses on Twitter and Facebook. So that's kind of our thing. We have a wonderful community. But yes, to answer your question, I think all small businesses should be involved in one or two relevant Twitter chats, because this is the thing. When they're, okay, let me explain what it is. So the host of the chat is sending out questions and answers, and it's a whole community that are following this hashtag, because every chat has a hashtag. And so everybody is there to help everybody else, and it's a wealth of information. I don't know, before Twitter, you were asking me why I love Twitter so much. Before Twitter, I don't know of anywhere where you could get that incredible information. And if you send out a question on your Twitter page and maybe nobody will answer, right? But you send that question in a Twitter chat, you're going to get 10 replies instantly, because everybody's watching the tweets and everybody's helping everybody. So it's great. Now, hosting a Twitter chat, there's a lot involved with that. So maybe as a small business, just first start by attending them, and do what you did. Lurk for a while, then participate, make those contacts and really get a feel for how it works.
I mean, you make some great connections. Yeah.
And then,
so are there tools that you like to use for Twitter chat? Because I know when I first started, I was like, I can't do this with just the regular Twitter app. It just didn't work very well. Trying to follow a hashtag and answer questions. And so are there tools that you use to set that up?
Well, there's Tweet Chat, and there's actually a couple of different Twitter chat tools. I know Madeline recommends that when people come to her chat that they use Tweet Chat, but you're going to think this is so old-fashioned, but I tweet every week for Viral Chat, and do you know what I have found is that I like to use two browsers. I'll use Chrome and I'll use Firefox. I'll have two different Twitter pages up, and I'll flip back and forth the whole time during the chat. I like doing it that old-fashioned way. I really like it. I've got a field up there with the hashtag search. Every now and then, I'll use TweetDeck. That's a great tool for using during a chat, because you can have a whole column there, right? Just following the hashtags. So it's up to you. People can get really fancy with it.
Well, yeah,
kind of old-fashioned.
And it depends on which ones you are, because I was in, they have different paces. Like when I did like Pin Chat, it's a little bit slower, and I know everybody, and it goes back and forth. And then I was a guest on Buffer Chat one time, and it was just like, and I was like, where am I? And so that's one of those tools may come a little bit handy. But yeah, I remember I was totally shocked on how fast and how questions, but they're very, very cool how you can do that.
Well, and a lot of times Twitter chats are question and answer format, right? So it depends on how many questions they have in their chat. For Viral Chat, we have 10 questions. That means there's a new question every 5 minutes. There's no messing around. It's like boom, 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 and people know it, and you get off that chat. It's 10 o'clock at night when that chat's over. I can't sleep. I'm like all wound up and adrenaline, But then I'll get on another chat. I forget which one I was a guest on recently. There was only 5 questions. This is all laid back, like I could get up and go get a drink of water between questions. I mean, I could never do that in a Viral Chat. So you're right. Each one has its own pace. And so it just depends. Depends on the chat.
Very cool. So we are we're the last question. So this is a question I ask all my guests, but where can they find you online? And I bet I know where you're going to say, but go ahead and give a plug to all your Twitter chats and where they can find you, like at Post Planner and all that stuff. So.
Okay, well, on Twitter, my account is Adams Consulting, which you can see right up here. And I'm there all the time. Anybody can contact me there. And then I also will be the one that is interacting on the Post Planner Twitter account. So that's at Post Planner. And then, of course, you can find us on Facebook /Post Planner. We have a very engaged community there. And pretty much anywhere. We're here on Blab a lot too, aren't we?
Yeah,
Jeff?
you are.
We're
So,
here
and you guys are having, and usually you have one earlier than this show. Mine's at 2 Central. You usually have one at 1 o'clock, usually on this day. But is that where you can find? Do you have scheduled times for Blabs? Because they're awesome. They're always great.
Yep, on Tuesdays and Fridays now.
Very, very cool. So, and as always, I'd love for you guys to head over to manlypinteresttips.com and join the email community so you'll never miss a great guest like we had with Diana today, because at Manly Pinterest Tips, we're always adding testosterone 1 pin at a time. See you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Bye.